Hey, so it's 2 o'clock in the morning. And I just finished recovering a Windows Server 2019 install. Turns out the standard process for doing it is completely uneducated. What I had was a Windows Server 2019 system. It got hit with a crypto encryption type thing that went through the whole thing and just fucked it. So what I ended up having to do, they had a backup from a couple of days before the infection started. So I've brought one of those home with me. It took me a couple of attempts to get the server to restore from the backup because every time you try, you boot off the Windows CD, the Windows Server CD. You go through the process. There's my backup. Click the thing, hit the thing. I only want to do the system drive. Hit the thing. Can't do it. Go through disk part. Blank the drive. Go back through the process. Fails. Go through the disk part process. Partition the drive. Format the drive. Have it ready. Fails. What I found I needed to do, and it's the only way I could get it to bloody work, is to boot off the and this is where all the steps are missing this. Start from the beginning. If you need to restore your Windows Server from a USB, I can't find it, USB hard drive that's plugged into the computer that's got a Windows Server system backup that you've done recently, what you need to do, have it plugged in. It's handy. Boot off either the Windows Server 2019 or equivalent. I used a 2016 disk. It worked anyway. USB stick or off the CD or DVD. Boot off of that. Go for it. Go through the processes. Choose your language. Next. Pretty much you need to do the first part of the Windows Server installation. That's where you go through the process, what version you've got, everything like that, what disk you're putting it on, blank the drive, enter. What it needed to do, and this is what's missing in all the guides, and I will eventually put one of these up. The guides are missing the part where the drive that you're restoring to has to already be laid out in the way that server expects it to be laid out. So if you are restoring... If your server does EFI boot, you need to boot the CD or the USB off the EFI version of the setup. If it's a CSM or an old school BIOS install that was already on there, you have to do that version. It will not restore. It will not cross restore. I'll work that out. So what you pretty much have to do... I've been on this for 12 hours now. I've only just finished it. So yeah, what you need to do is, if the machine was running say it was upgraded from an older version, so it's running a CSM boot, you need to boot the Windows CD off the CSM version, and then basically run the entire install right up to the point where it does installing, adding features, blah, 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 blah. And the little scroll line goes across and reboot. As soon as it reboots, sweet. It's what it's done at that point. I mean, you could have started maybe a little bit earlier, but anyway. Okay. Once it gets to that point, drop it. Go back, F8, Asus, F11, ASRock, F12 Gigabyte, F whatever. Do your boot menu, key press, boot back off that same CD again. We don't want it. We don't want Windows to continue going back through the full setup process. We just want it laid out. Go back into your CD or your USB. Select your language. You can ignore all that anyway. You don't have to. Just go next. Go down to the bottom. Hit your repair this computer or repair this PC or whatever the option is at the bottom, then go troubleshoot, then system image restore or whatever it is, then do the process. You can check the little box that goes, just do the system disk. That's the one that it has everything to do with getting the computer to start. Because what's happened already at this point before you've clicked that is the hard drive's been formatted. It's got the little partition at the beginning that allows Windows or allows the system to work out where Windows is and how to boot. It's got the layout for the file system. It's ready to go. So once you do your system image restore, which you can now do, thank God, it will go through the process and complete it. And that's sweet. So then you can restart the computer after it's finished. It'll restart and you'll be back into your server install as it was. Now, if you had other drives in the system afterwards, because they should also be part of your system image backup. What I did before is each of those drives I took them out because they were all disconnected while I was doing the restore process. I hooked them up to another machine, disk part, clean, so they were completely flat, and then just went into disk management and initialized NTFS partition, relabeled the disks, and then hooked them both back into the server after it's restarted into itself so we could see the server was working. And they're sitting there as blank drives. So you can then go into server, do the you just hit search, go server backup, and it comes up. You hit the restore, which is an icon, an option just on the side, and then you can restore individual volumes, and then you can do one-to-one. So just make sure your drives are labeled right so that it goes across the way it's supposed to. At this point, server will be back up, but your shares will be missing because those drives are missing. But after those drives are re-imaged across or restored across from the external USB, they'll be fine. Let it run too. Restart the server. Go back in to server backup restore, whatever it is, and then go through the process and find the one that says system state, and that will reinstate all the settings and bits and pieces that make it work up until that point from the last time it did it bridges the gap between the last time it did a system image to where it was when it did the last rolling backup sort of thing. Let it do that. It'll restart. You'll be back up and running. Not a friggin' drama. None of the online guides mentioned anything about the fact that to get that image to work, because I couldn't do it. I tried a couple of ways. I was on site from 4 o'clock this afternoon trying to work this stuff out. I've dealt with Windows 7 and Windows 10 system restores, and they're not as easy, but you look at your online guides and every single one's like, oh, you need to buy a Cronus, or you need to buy this other one, or you need to buy whatever. No. You have to be a persistent little prick to get through it. So it's pretty much a case of start with a fresh drive, blank it completely, boot off your disk, install your server. I actually think, because it's as long as you've got your choice between your EFI and your CSM right, I actually think you could get away with popping even a Windows 10 disk or USB in, doing the very first initial install, because server is basically Windows anyway. Doing the first initial install up to the point where it reboots, drop it, boot off your server disk or your server USB stick, then run your system restore. That's what I needed. I searched hightail everywhere to try and find how to do it. Nothing. So anyway, that worked for me. It's up and running. It's ready to go back. I'm now nearly 12 hours later getting this shit sorted out. And that's just dealing with 3 drives. One's 500 gig and of data, and two terabytes worth of data. And I'm 12 hours in because I couldn't get the information I needed just to make the shit work. I'm now there. So I'm very happy. But yeah, so that's the process. Anyway, this might help you. I hope it does. Thanks. Bye. Awkward moment.